Welcome to the Watershed Integrated Stream and Wetlands Workshop. I'm Kurt Richardson, Director of the Duke Wetlands Center. Without further ado, I want to introduce Eddie Culberson, as I said, Director of the Durham Soil and Water Conservation District. He's been an integral part of this project, and the district is the co-sponsor of this along with Duke University and Clean Water Management Trust Fund with the state of North Carolina. So with that, Eddie.
In addition to getting this project, Kurt approached me, I think it was around 2005 or 4 or something like that, and wanted to know if we wanted to be a partner. And with the districts, that's one of the things we excel in is creating partnerships throughout the community. And we're like, well, sure, Duke University, and of course Curtis is worldly renowned known, and so we said, yeah. But in the process, I had an idea for Curtis too. I'm like, well, we have a slot open on our district board that we'd like to fill. And so Curtis has been on our district board as an appointed supervisor, and that's worked out good. That partnership's worked out good for us there as well. All right, my responsibility today is to kind of whet your appetite for what you're going to see. I'm not going to go into the phases. I'm just going to introduce you to the phases and some of the partners that it took to get these phases on the ground. And so we'll just go through this. Here's a list of our sponsors. As you see, Duke University is very much engaged, different sections of Duke. Of course, the Soil and Water District, and then our funding agencies, Clean Water Management Trust Fund, also DENR, which is Division of Water Resources. EEP program has been involved somewhat, and then there's a lot of research partners that have funded a lot of different aspects of the research. Here's just an overview of the 5 phases quickly, and again, I won't go into them in depth, but phase 1 consists of some stream restoration. Phase 2 is going to be our wetland pond. Phase 3 is the wetland sales. Phase 4 has 2 reaches to it, Reach 1 and Reach 2, and both of those are stream restoration, with Reach 1 having a special anabranching approach to it, which you'll learn about later, of course. And then Phase 5, which we have the design and permitting, and we're waiting on construction funds. Here is a shot of the head of Sandy Creek, and you would think by the size of this we have a lot of water coming through there. Now, Kurt, have you ever seen those flow full by any chance, or hurricane that flow full? Well, you can imagine the amount of water that's coming out through there. These guys wouldn't be here if that was the case, but anyway, that's a lot of water, and most of it is coming from the city of Durham, and not necessarily Duke University-owned property. Here you see a pre-construction. We have a lot of deposition of sand. You see the stream trying to heal itself, but in-size channels, and this is probably a lesser of what we've seen in the worst case scenario on this project. This is bad enough, but here's another sign we've seen a lot of, trees falling in. And when you're going after grant funds, that's a good sign that it's a good site. If you got a lot of trees falling in and sediment delivery. So, but this is another, this is still not the worst of the sites that we've seen on all 5 phases. Phase 1, like I said, was stream restoration, and also they restored some wetland. Here's a list of some of the partners and the cost. You can see the cost for phase 1 and phase 2, and I'll talk about phase 2 in just a minute. We had some macroinvertebrate study completed. USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service provided some funding for some plant material, and then of course monitoring. You'll find on this particular project, these are actual data numbers that they're going to give you during this, and I think those are worth a lot in terms of taking something away from this course. But then you also see some research for graduate students And that's something Curtis does well, is he plugs the students into the project to where they have ownership of it. Phase 1, here's the location of it again, just off of 751, for those of you familiar with Durham. Here's more of a site of what we're used to seeing throughout in size, no sinuosity, but there's just a good example of what we've seen pre-construction. Phase 2 is a stormwater impoundment pond. There's some cost of it. It's about 3.9 acres, and they have the ability to raise and lower the water level. The thing I see that is utilizing it, you see a lot of wildlife out there. You see a lot of plant materials that you wouldn't normally see. But most of all, we hear a lot of good comments from the people who use it as a path. You know, they jog right across this trail and or the bridge, and they utilize that to its fullest. Here's another view, and I think you have some ducks there in the front. These pictures don't do them justice, and of course when we go out there, you'll see what I'm talking about. Phase 3 is the 6 offline sails that was installed. And this is actually capturing the water from Wallace Wade Stadium and Cameron Indoor, where they play their sports over there, and treating it with different vegetations in the sails. Division of Water Resources were a nice sponsor in this project, and then of course Duke University. And we had money left over again from the USDA for the plant material. Here's a shot of Phase 3. The channel actually runs straight down here, and then on both sides we have a series of 3 sails, and you have a flume at the top and a flume down at the bottom. And then of course, again, a lot of monitoring is going on during this particular phase. Okay, Reach 4, Phase 4, Reach 1. We actually put Phase 4, Reach 2 in first because of the obvious. It's at the top of the hill. And then we followed back up with Reach 1, which was about 1,561 feet. Just total, it was priority 1 where we created the new channel. And you know, it looks real good now. Okay, here's a Duke grad student who's giving us a perception shot down in the channel. Again, this is pretty much typical of the whole way the whole upper Sandy Creek reach looked, and at one time, but I think we're about to eradicate this view here.
So you go down in that stream, you stand in?
Yes, sir.
Do you find horizon or original watershed level that used to be there, or is this stream used to flow over all this, the extra water from the city coming down?
Well, I would say the original channel was able to get out on the floodplain, and then you know what's happened as it built out upstream, the channel was started to eat down, and then it was unable to get on the floodplain, and then of course it continues to eat on down. And so I think that was the case here. Now, Kurt, I'm sure will go over this a little bit later in his presentation, but I'm sure that, I'm not sure where Bankfield is. I'm kind of scared in case Dave Roskin's listening to me, because he says if you don't know Bankfield, you don't know shit. So, but anyway, I'd say originally, you know, the water was able to get out on the floodplain up here. And when we cut the new channel or conducted the priority 1 restoration, that lifted up the bottom of the channel to where the water could get out on the floodplain.
We're going to go through this. Each reach we're going to go through in great detail. This is just a quick overview.
Right.
I just wonder whether these are legacy sediments or these.
There are some legacy sediments.
Right.
Possibly. We have.
Okay. All right, well, here's a shot of the finished product recently, right after it was done. Of course, it doesn't look this way now because we have a lot more vegetation. But you see the new channel that was constructed. And the thing that amazes me is when you go out there and look at these sites, you originally see these great big channels. I mean, basically scars in the land. And then when the engineers get through designing, usually you think an engineer over designs, but usually this is about the size they come up with. But I think the reason is you want the water to get up out of the channel onto this floodplain, so it'll dissipate and drop out some of the sediment and so forth. Okay, during Reach 1, once we completed it, there was also another grant that was received through Clean Water Management Trust Fund, and this was an innovative stormwater grant. And Kurt had come up with an anti-branching effect, and that's where he's taking the water and basically forcing it out onto the floodplain area. And of course he has wells and all that, and again, he'll get into that monitoring detail a little bit later. Here is Neil down in the mud getting dirty, but he's right here at the anti-branching. This is where the water is basically, they're putting a flume in here to divert it from the main channel onto the floodplain, and then back down here where it goes back into the main channel. But again, this will be gone over and you'll see it out in the field for yourself. Here's the side of the finished product. You see some of these well monitoring, and I think they're at different depths, and Kurt will go over that. But again, it's growed up a little bit from this, but that's the way it should look, you know. You want a good buffer zone, and we were able to use a lot of the trees in the structures of the stream, which of course gives it the natural look. And so that, not to mention, it saves a few dollars. Okay, phase 4, Reach 2. Okay, again, more stream restoration, more funds from the Division of Water Resources. Duke University, of course, is always pitching in with monitoring. And, you know, our department, we administer all these grants. And Lisa does a good job because you've got grants where Duke University is donating in-kind match, but then you've got other issues where they're actually collecting revenue. Then you've got your engineer, then you've got your contractor, so it gets a little confusing at times, but all these sponsors it takes to put these projects on the ground. Okay, here's a finished picture of Reach 2 on phase 4. Again, recently done. You know, they look nice when they're recently done, and I find if you're going to take elected officials out there, that's the time to take them, because they don't understand the beauty of it being grown up like a lot of people. But if you're ever going to do tours, you know, shortly after you complete it is when to do it, because they can actually see the structures in there, and you're more apt to get them down near the project. All right, here we are just kind of smoking over the situation, looking at it. I think we had to do a little bit of correction action, and that's going to happen. And thank goodness for those contingency funds and those grants. Sometimes we need them during blowouts and stuff. Okay, phase 5, and this is our final phase, and once this is completed, we'll have approximately 1,365 acres under BMP treatment. I hope Kurt brought that slide where it shows the 18 different samples you took from the start to the finish. That's an outstanding slide. You'll see the difference. But we've already received the funds. This is actually a phase of phase 5. This is where we installed some wetland sails, a 4-bay and 2 sails, to actually capture the water off a parking lot. And this is actually part of Durham County strategic plan. They have bought into the restoration projects that we're doing here in our department, and this was actually one of them. And here's another unique thing. Duke University is not crazy about letting other entities monitor easements, but Curtis, being on the district board and having a good relationship with the president, was able to encourage and talk Duke University, and that it would be okay, you know, if the soil and water district, and if you're gonna monitor an easement, one like this is definitely one to monitor, because not only are we watching it, we were out there the other day and we had a neighbor or two to come down, they won't know what we were doing, you know, so we've got other people monitoring it too that we don't even have to pay, so these are the types of easements that you want to monitor. This is the part of phase 5 we just completed, where you have your 4-bay right here. This is the pipe, and it really comes out of there when it's raining. I expect yesterday it was coming out full force, but this is your 4-bay, which spills over into your 2 water cells, and then behind there we installed about 400 feet of stream restoration. Here's another shot of the same site. Turned out really well. Okay, phase 5, and this is the one that we're trying to get funded now. We have the design and permits in hand, about $250,000 worth. Duke University is again agreed to donate I think it's around 7 acres to a conservation easement. We have received approval from Clean Water for about $400,000 for construction, but the funds are pending at this point in time. Duke University, I think they actually had an in-kind match of about 38% on this particular project. EPA's funds are being used to actually, again, do the monitoring and the study, in which all those numbers are in your material. So again, you know, I say all this, partnerships, that's what it takes to get all these on the ground. And you guys, by being here today, you guys are actually partners, because one of our goals and one of our grants was to conduct workshops, not only with resource people like yourself, but also with legislative officials, local officials, in hope that they'll see the importance of these projects, put more funding toward them, because we know some of our granting entities are drying up, so we need to keep those funded so we can continue to do these types of jobs.
Does the EPA have a grant program specifically that you can make application to?
Yes, the EPA 319 grant, which is due May the 23rd. It's kind of short notice, but they do have a grant that can be used for stream restoration.
It's usually through your state, it's through your state, and the EPA provides money to states.
Right.
And then you get the money to work on a local project.
Right. North Carolina received, I think they have $1.3 million. So I'm sure it varies from state to state, but that's the total that they have. Well, that was my commercial kind of leading into this great workshop, and you know, I think you're going to find it